Peace and blessings, everybody. Peace and blessings, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Welcome to the Strategic Arts and Education Initiative. Thank you for participating. The Strategic Arts and Education Initiative was funded by a grant from the Ford Foundation. This initiative was created by the Confined Arts, which enables artists to express their voices through the visual arts, performing arts, poetry, and music as a means to abolish inhumane narratives and socially degrading stigmas that are associated with people who are incarcerated. So thank you for being here with us. I would pass it over now to my co-host, Crystal. I think you're still muted, Crystal.
Rookie mistake. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. My name is Crystal. I am the owner of Crystal Letters and the co-founder of Open Road Poetry here in Jersey City, New Jersey. And I'm going to be reading our community agreements just so we're all on the same page. So be engaged and ask questions if you have any. You can feel free to drop them in the chat. We're here to learn from your experiences too. And come as you are. It's okay not to be people ready. So please remain with your camera off and your microphone muted. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. If you're unsure how to use the chat, let us know and we'll answer your questions during Q&A. And if you feel like you're a little confused about something, use the word hold in the chat if something is unclear or needs further explanation. If you need a break, pause, take a step back, go get a glass of water, cup of coffee, come back into the session, feel comfortable. The entire session is being recorded and it will be posted on the Confined Arts website at the very end. And you can review it later at your own pace. And if you haven't already, we're asking that you introduce yourself in the chat, share what you like with the community that's here. There'll be more people joining us through the duration of our workshop today. Let us know what your name is, where you're tuning in from, what your favorite color is. If you already have a business, you can share your website and social media links in the chat. And about your business and the future of it, where do you see your business in the next 5 years?
Shall I do the digital land acknowledgement?
You sure can.
Thank you. Since I will out at this time do a digital land acknowledgement, since our activities are shared digitally to the internet, let's take a moment to consider the legacy of colonization embedded within the technology structures and the ways of thinking we use every day. We are using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many indigenous communities. Even the technologies that are central to much of the art we make leave significant carbon footprints contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect indigenous people worldwide. I invite you to join us in acknowledging all of this, as well as our shared responsibility to make good of this time and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and allyship. And quoted Adrienne Wong.
So again, good morning, everybody. My name is Crystal Davis. I'm a multidisciplinary artist, born and raised out of Jersey City. I specialize in experimental art. I'm also a poet, a painter, freelance writer, editor, and social media marketer. So I work with a lot of arts nonprofit organizations throughout the tri-state area, internationally and nationally. And I've pretty much been able to build my business from the ground up. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to learn a lot from what we're hoping to teach you today. I'm gonna pass it on to you, Isaac. Or I think Edwin might be popping up. Oh, here we go.
No,
here's the strategic yes. Art.
So going back to just to give you a little bit more about the strategic arts engagement before we dive deep into our subject, because there are a lot of workshops that are taking place in this initiative that we do want you to take advantage of. But the mission of the Strategic Arts and Education Initiative is to provide free artistic literacy and professional development and capacity building trainings and workshops. So we are doing that virtually. Some of these are virtual and some of them are on site where I'm at right now in East Harlem on 116th Street in Madison in Harlem. So we do have artistic literacy courses going on, and we do have these professional development workshops going on virtually. And if you want to learn more, the link is here on this slide. And what I will do actually is, just to be convenient, I'm going to drop it into the chat right now for everyone. So folks can just take a look at the initiative as a whole and some of the other workshops that have been taking place. You can walk in for the remainder of the summer if you want to, or you can take part in some of the other virtual ones. With that, I believe that I will introduce myself a little bit more. I'm talking a lot. Peace and blessings. I feel like I've met some of the folks I see here now, but if I haven't had the opportunity to meet you personally, my name is Isaac Scott. I am a multidisciplinary visual artist and journalist. A lot of the work that I have been doing comes out of my own lived experience with incarceration and using the arts as a means for advocacy and creativity, as well as entrepreneurship. I am the founder of Isaac's Quarterly, LLC, and the Confined Arts. The Confined Arts is a program that we've created. It's probably what I may be most notable for. I've been working a lot longer in the nonprofit area than I have in the for-profit area. And the Confined Arts has been that vehicle by which I've been navigating working in the nonprofit area while I was at Columbia University and now at Another Choice Youth and Family Outreach, where we house the Confined Arts. Isaac's Quarterly is a art and design and consulting company, and we specialize in 3 areas. The first area is art for social change and systems intervention. The second part is strategic arts engagement for community enhancement. And the third area is the media's role in creating popular stereotypes. So in those ways, we create documentaries, videos, static graphics, and advocacy campaigns, legal videos, and a lot of those things for people who are working in the legal field. And with that, without saying too much, you can go to isaacsquarterly.com and you know, I've put a bunch of information up there so that you can just learn a lot more about the work that we're doing. Definitely, you can go to the confinedarts.org as well. We can go to the next slide, Crystal. Thank you. I want to take a moment to acknowledge Edwin Santana, who's the founder of Tough Art Media. He's one of our comrades. He joined us on the first workshop. He may be joining us on the third and fourth one. So we just wanted to acknowledge him here because he is a part of, you know, making up the fabric of this 4-part workshop. So we can go from there. And with that, we are moving into our second workshop in a 4-part series, The Keys to Successful Entrepreneurship. And with that, I will pass it back to you, Crystal.
Okay, so if you are new here today and you didn't get a chance to see the first workshop, our previous topic was on identifying your niche as a new business owner or as a budding business owner. And today's topic is going to be based on business structure and business management. So we'll walk you through how to structure a business and what makes a business move and work. Upcoming topics are going to be marketing and advertising, gaining visibility for your business or future business, and sustainability, fundraising, and revenue. Successful entrepreneurs are lifelong learners who constantly look for ways to improve and grow. The quote is by Unknown.
Love it. All right, y'all. So I'm going to be really fast and I'm really going to give a snapshot on what the first workshop was like. The reason I'll give a snapshot is because the workshop is recorded. It is already on YouTube. It is live, and it's also on the landing page for this workshop in the link that I just sent you. So if you want to watch it, you can. But for those, just to bring us all up to speed so that it's seamless, I'm going to do a really quick snapshot of what we did in the first workshop. So in the first workshop, it was identifying your niche and what is the purpose of your business? What is your skill? What's bringing you to take on this business? Some of the topics, some of the questions that we explored was, what is your brand? What is your mission? Do you have a toolkit, a logo? Do you have a business account? Who is your audience? You know, what need is your product or service fulfilling? That was a very big thing. What language is associated with the industry of your product or your service? So a lot of this required you to really think through why you were choosing to do and take on the task you were taking on. Let's go to the next slide, Crystal. Okay, so here we we got deep to really to get folks to really think about what was bringing them to their work. So what is a skill versus a talent? You know, what were those things? You know, and skills is an expertise that can be acquired by doing things over time, and a talent refers to an inborn and special ability that someone has, both of which can lead you into entrepreneurship. Into entrepreneurship, excuse me. I have started projects based on the talents that I have, the things that I was born with, my gifts, but I've also started some projects and initiatives off with some of the skills that I got after I learned some things. So it's all good, either one, but it's important that you know the difference between the talent and the skill. And you can also refine your talents and your skills. So that's something we'll get into a bit later. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But yes, again, thinking through like what skills do you have? You know, what talents do you have? We spoke a little bit about business management, but not too much, but teamwork and leadership skills, things. We spoke very briefly about some of the components and concepts you should begin to familiarize yourself with, some of the things you should begin to think about as you start really thinking about, well, what do I do best? What am I willing to dedicate time and energy to do? You know, because when it comes down to it, you're the one running your business. If you don't work, you don't get paid. If you don't, if you're not out there like selling your product, it's not going to get sold. You know, if you're not out there, you know, hustling and bustling and making it work, it's not going to work. So, you know, really just looking at the differences in between some of our entrepreneurial skills, but some of our talents that we have inherent, like risk-taking, initiative, creativity, self-efficacy, patience, communication, and passion. These are some things that we can just develop. They're soft skills. We develop these every day in different projects. How can we take those and use those in our business and or in our entrepreneurial pursuits? Because as you will see, everything doesn't have to shape out to a business. You can just do it, you know, for you. Also, what skills do you need for your business? This is important. You know, sometimes folks want to start an organization or they want to start a business, but there are some special skills that you actually need. What are those? You should do some research into it. Don't just go into it blind. Take the time. It's nothing worse than going into work blind, because you'll spend more time, you know, fixing what you could have prevented in the beginning if you would have taken the time to just prepare yourself. Nothing, you know, I'll say this for every business owner and every person seeking to pursue some sort of entrepreneurial endeavor, it's not going to be an immediate success. Even if the first time you went out and did it, it was successful, don't, you know, depend or count that it will always be that way. Every business, every entrepreneurial endeavor has its ups and downs. And a lot of the skills you learn is what's going to help you weather the storm when you have to go through. So keeping those in mind, what skills do you need? With that, I think I will pass it to Crystal. Is that cool?
Yep. Okay, so next thing that you need to keep in mind when you're creating your business or starting one up, what is the reason why you're providing the services that you're providing? What does your business fulfill the need for the audience that you're looking to, you know, cater to? And what services or products are unique to the client? Because you have to take into consideration that there's so many businesses out in the world. And yes, you could open up a marketing business, you could open up an arts business, you can open up a business as a musician, or even just open up like a nonprofit or something along those lines. And you might be able to compare yourself to other businesses, but you don't want to have to only compare yourself to them. You want people to come to you. You want your clientele to come to you from a space of comfort where they can look at your business and be like, okay, your business does this for me. Your business does graphic design, and I like your business because the way that the artwork style that you create, or your business makes music, and the people want to go to you because you have a certain type of sound that they're looking for. So knowing that you have a certain skill or you have a certain talent that you can use to draw in your audience, take advantage of that, because that's going to be the main key that your clientele is going to keep coming back to you for over and over and over again. So when we're looking into what your audience is and who you work for, and what your product is fulfilling for them, you'll find at some point that your business is falling within a niche. And once you find the niche that your business falls into, you'll pretty much take out most of the guesswork that you would have had to put in when you were starting up your business, because you'll know that there are clients who are, they might only be looking for graphic design work. They might only be looking for public relations or marketing work. And when you're able to kind of put them into their own file cabinets, you can create different templates and different structures for your own business that you can use them later on down the line. And I think I'm passing this on back to you. And this is about having your mission.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Crystal. Thank you so much. And I would just add that it's important that you know what need you're filling for your audience. Understand, if you can understand the need you're filling, then you'll be able to communicate to them why they should support your business rather than another business. To the point Crystal was making, how are you unique? Why should we go to you versus someone else? Right. But specifically, and I think we wouldn't be true to self if we didn't have this component. What is your mission aside from money making? Many people, yes, you want to go into business, you want to make money, but what mission do you have aside from making money? Is there a mission to, for an example, besides for Isaac's Quarterly, besides making money for producing art and producing content and for consulting, we also want to have a cultural impact by the content we create, by the work we produce, the style, the aesthetics, the representation. There is also a larger societal goal that we have. What goal do you have? Is it to, if you're selling food and you're selling like drinks, maybe you're doing smoothies or something, is there like a nutritional goal that you also want to meet alongside making money? So think about that as well. It's not just about, because that could also be your marketing tool, not just because you can't say, hey, spend money with me because I want money, right? You actually have to tell people why they should spend with you. And you should spend with me because our products seek to, our products seek to improve nutrition. Our products seek to improve cultural development. Our products seek to improve cultural representation, whatever it is. Our products seek to improve these things. Here's what we're doing. Here's our mission aside from making money, right? So with that, I'll kick this next slide off and then let Crystal jump in, because I think we were just making these points already. What is the language or terminology associated with the industry or product or service that you are working with? So generally, just like when you go to the doctor, if you work in the medical field, they have certain language they use, terminology, and it may be unknowing to us. So sometimes we got to ask the doctor, what do you mean by this? Because that industry has its own language. In the art industry, there's a language. In the music industry, there's a language. I remember I worked on a project, cross-collaborated with some musicians, an ensemble, and they were like, hey, we're going to send you the stems and da-da-da-da-da. And before I knew what stems were, I was like, what are they talking about, right? So I had to go and look it up, right? So at that point, I understood what they were, but when they sent it to me, I also knew what stems were as well. So it was a language that they were using that I wasn't familiar with, that I had to become familiar with because they were new clients. And I need now, when I can go and I tell a musician what I need, I'm like, hey, send me the stems, I'll get the visuals, boom, boom, boom. So now we're communicating better. So what is the language or terminology that is associated with your product or service? Crystal, you want to add anything here?
Yeah, I wanted to pretty much add that no matter what niche or business you decide to just open your endeavor and move forward in, there's always going to be a different type of language that both your audience and the people that you're working with are going to have. And one of the main things that I want to draw into, especially for people who are looking to become self-employed or independent contractors, make sure you demand respect. Because a lot of the times when people try to hire independent contractors or hire people who are self-employed, they don't normally look at you in the way of having your own business. They look at you in the way of you being someone that they hired and now you're a part of their team, which to some extent is a good thing. But sometimes there are bigger businesses, bigger corporations that seek to take advantage of those. So as long as you know what your language is, as long as you know that, if you're running a business and, your core is the community, you want to give back to the community, remember that these are going to be the top things later on that you can use, especially for your marketing, for your public relations, that people will understand that, when you command a stage, you're looking to speak to the community, you're looking to speak with respect, you're looking to speak with creativity, you're looking to speak with love. So as long as you're continuing to promote those words and that type of voice outward, that's the type of business you're going to pull into yourself. And I think you're doing this next one here.
Yep. So to the points that we were making before, and again, if y'all have any questions, I know we're running through these parts pretty fast. But if there are any questions, please drop the questions in the chat, and we will take some time throughout the workshop to answer these questions. But another thing that's important, and this goes to all of what we're seeing. How do you prepare? A lot of what we're telling you to do is prepare yourself. Figure out what it is you like to do. What is it that you're good at, or that you're willing to be passionate about to do, even when no one supports it? What is that thing? And then how do you prepare the space for you to go in and then go do that work? So this is what we're saying: preparation. Preparation. How does the saying go? An ounce of preparation beats a pound of cure. So it's better to take the time in the beginning to prepare yourself so that you don't have to spend more time later trying to cure something that you could have started on the right way. So with that in mind, do you need or can you obtain a license or a certificate for your work? How can you prepare yourself to be not only certified with the skill itself, but also certified in the eyes of your audience and your consumer, the people you want to support you? If they see that you are certified in something, they're more likely to, you're not going to ask someone to come and to fix your roof who's not certified in roofing, right? You're gonna want some sort of certification, some sort of license that you know how to do this work. So the same way, don't get upset if you're not certified or licensed in something and people don't want to support you. And also, I want to encourage people, and this is highly important for people who go through certain vocational programs or non-accredited programs. Sometimes your certification may not be valued to a specific customer. And I want to say that, I say that with all love and patience to you, to understand that, so that you don't get frustrated when someone is like, hey, well, what is this? Where is this from? We never heard of this place, and you're like, hey, I took the time. I went 2 years to this place, it happens. So when you go to get certified or licensed, make sure that you are getting licensed and certified at places that are recognized. Also, seek out financial support for these places also. So there are a lot of financial aid mechanisms for you to take part in when there's certifications and licenses. Go to the Department of Labor, go to the Small Business Solution Centers. There are a lot of places. You can go to your bank and ask for information. There's a lot of places you can go to learn about certifications, licenses, and the things you will need to get started on your business. So with that, I will
have a couple more things to add to the licenses and certificates.
Please go for it. Sorry.
Thank you. No, you're fine. So we will go into our resources later on, once we get to the end of the workshop, but do keep in mind, you can actually go to Google courses, and I think there might be a couple of courses that you could take to obtain a license or certificate for free. You can also use Coursera. There's Udemy, which is Udemy. And I think even Harvard University and Stanford University, they're giving away free courses that they started during the pandemic. So take advantage of getting your whatever type of certificate that you can, because later on down the line, you can use these and put them on your resume, and that'll make it look even better when you're trying to apply for a different job, or even if you end up opening a business and you're trying to lobby towards getting a new client.
Yep, thank you for that, Krista. You also made me think about the New York Public Library. They have in the city, the New York Public Library, everybody has a bunch of free courses, everything from like Adobe to Google, so many stuff. So there are a lot of trainings and classes that you can take and put that on your resume, and folks will, those are notable places, people go there and get trainings. They are, they will be recognized. So just some more resources, but we'll add that in our resource section and make sure we share it with you all. But sorry, thank you, Krista.
No problem. So now that was the end of the snapshot for workshop 1. And again, if you didn't get a chance to see it, you can watch the video on the Confined Arts website. And we're going to be starting the first half of workshop 2, which is based on business structure. And then I'm passing it back to you.
Thank you. So again, if you have any questions about anything from finding your niche, you can leave it in the chat. You can even email either of us later and just ask the question. You'll have our emails and follow-ups when we follow up with you all with the videos and the resources. Shoot your questions there. Well, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I believe we already had a running FAQ document. Maybe that was from the first one, but if not, we'll create one. And we'll also publish that as a resource as well, so that there's like real-time questions that can be asked at any point. It doesn't have to be during this workshop. It could be, hey, I went downtown and they said da 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 da. What do you think I should do? And we'll give some feedback and thoughts on that to guide you in the right directions. So with that, today we are going to be in the business. We're going to be doing an overview on business structure and business management. We'll start our first part with business structure. So the different business types we'll talk about right now are sole proprietorships, single member LLCs, 501c3 nonprofit organizations, and being self-employed or an independent contractor, which you will see is could actually be listed with sole proprietorship. So with that, I will, I got the next one. Perfect. So we can go to the next slide. Thank you. A sole proprietorship, we'll give you like a basic definition of it, and then we'll go through the pros and the cons of each one. From there, I think it'll make a lot more sense to you within your own capacity. Think capacity and ambitious, right? So you know what you can do today physically, realistically, but then also you know what you want to do. So as you plan and prepare, again, think about your capacity today and what you're able to take on today or tomorrow, but then also plan ambitiously for what you seek to take on and soak up all of this information with that in mind. And I say that because your business might take different shapes over time. Our business first started as a sole proprietorship and then transitioned into a single member LLC. But I just wanted to just plant that as just some inspiration as we go through the rest of this information. A sole proprietorship, also known as a sole tradeship, individual entrepreneurship, or proprietorship, is a type of enterprise owned, here's the important part, everyone, owned and run by one person, and in which there is no legal distinction between the owner and the business entity. Now, that is not to be mistaken with a sole proprietor does not necessarily work alone. So I don't want you to think because the business is owned and run by one person that they work alone. No, a sole proprietor may employ other people. So we can go to the next slide. Some of the pros and cons about a sole proprietorship. So I'll go through the pros first. A sole proprietorship is an unincorporated business, keep that in mind, with only one owner who pays personal income taxes on the profits earned. Now, even though you go downtown, because I know in New York City, you do still have to get a sole proprietorship certificate. So you do still have to register your sole proprietorship. You still are an unincorporated business in the sense that you don't have liability, as you'll see moving forward. Everything is connected with you personally. Sole proprietorships are easy to establish and dismantle due to the lack of government involvement, making them popular with small business owners and contractors. Most small businesses start as sole proprietorships and end up transitioning to a limited liability entity or corporation as the company grows. So that was the point I was making to you all before. So there are some pros. You can start with something light and then work your way up. You don't have to jump right into, the LLC or the nonprofit organization. Some of the cons, a sole proprietorship does not have any government protection as they are not registered. This means that all liabilities extend from the business to the owner. In other words, if someone sues the business, they sue you. You have to pay that. So for an example, if Isaac's Quarterly was a sole proprietorship, if you sued Isaac's Quarterly, then you would be, my personal bank funds would also be subject to those penalties, if you will. So there's no liability protection. It's harder to get financing and business credit, right? It's harder to sell your business. It is because it's a sole proprietorship. So people are generally, looking for you to be a little bit more established or to just note yourself as a freelancer, which comes with some of the disadvantages that Crystal spoke about earlier, with people not respecting you as a business and just like another staff member. So there are some things you should think about when you are weighing in on the pros and cons of sole proprietorship. Before we transition, would you like to give any comments on this one, Crystal?
Not on this one, but I do have some for the next one.
Okay, so would you like to do the next one? If you want, you can go for it.
Okay, so this actually falls into what Crystal Letters is, which is why I can relate to it. So a single member LLC is a way that you can set up your business that provides you with more limited liability protection than you would receive as a sole proprietorship. So in that aspect that Isaac was talking about with the sole proprietorship, how if somebody wanted to place a lawsuit against your business, it would affect you personally. As a single member LLC, if somebody wanted to take you to court, whether it was over some kind of contracts or some kind of agreement that you might have had, it will only affect the funds of the business. So at that point, your business has its own EIN number, which you'll learn what that is a little later on when I do the pros and cons. And then your social security number is separate, because as a single member LLC, you are not using your own social security number, which is why your funds are separate. If you are a sole proprietorship, then you will be using your social security number to collect any funds that a business or a client may give you in the future. And the word single member recognizes that the LLC has one owner, which is also known as a member. So a lot of the times with a single member LLC, yes, you have the option to work with other people, other companies, other clients, where you can do work for them. You can also hire people who are independent contractors to work exclusively with your business. But when you decide that you want to pay them afterwards, you have to collect a W-9, because that makes you a liability, and the people that you are employing also become a liability if you don't have all your paperwork in the right place at the right time. So here are some pros and cons of being a single member LLC. Pros are liability protection, like we mentioned. An LLC is a separate legal entity. You also have the ability to bring on new members, and flexible federal income tax filing. So you can choose to file as a sole proprietorship, or you can file as a corporation, which is where the LLC comes from. And you can pass on ownership to others, such as family members, friends at some point. It could be something that you put in your will. This could be something that you just decide that you want to retire from your single member LLC, and you just want to pass it on to somebody that you have faith in, that you know that they'll carry the business to the right place. But here are some cons about having a single member LLC. Just keep in mind that a single member LLC is not to be confused with a sole proprietorship. Even if you elect to pay taxes like a sole proprietorship, more on that. We'll give you more on that shortly. Single member LLC is not a sole proprietorship. Unlike a sole proprietorship, a single member LLC can elect how it files its taxes as a pass-through entity or a corporation. And Sometimes there might be issues bringing on additional members, but it usually depends on what field your business is in. And then some other cons is that you cannot protect other members that you bring on from liabilities. They become an asset in case anything ever happens. And you want me to do the next slide, the independent contractor?
Yeah,
Okay,
go
cool.
for it, because
All right,
yeah.
this is in my this is in my wheelbarrow anyway. So I am also considered to be a self-employed / independent contractor, which basically means that I have a set of different companies that I am employed through. They can hire Crystal Letters, they can hire Open Road Poetry to do certain tasks for them. And at the end of the project, I'm able to get paid through a W-9. So what it means to be self-employed or an independent contractor is that a self-employed person does not work for a specific employer. So this goes back to what I said in the very beginning, that you are not a staff member when somebody hires you as an independent contractor, because you don't get the same consistent salary, you don't get the same consistent wage as other employees or staff members would get for a bigger company. So say, for example, if you end up taking on a project where you can work with your city, or you can work with an educational group from your city, there's a certain set of rules that they have to follow with you being a contract employee. So you could work for up to 10 months for them. You can work for up to 12 months. You can even work for just like as small as a 1 month project. And self-employed individuals and independent contractors earn income by contracting with a trade or business directly. So these individuals will use their personal social security number when filling out contract information. And in most cases, the taxpayer will not withhold taxes. So that means if you're working as an independent contractor, you will get hit with a 1040 or a 1099. So you have to pay for the taxes that are coming your way. That's not something you can avoid. However, the difference between being self-employed, but then being a single member LLC, as a single member LLC, if you work for a different company as your single member LLC, your company will get hit with the taxes, but your personal social security number won't get hit with the taxes. Where in this case, being an independent contractor, you are being employed as yourself. So self-employed individuals must also keep in mind that you can be involved in a variety of different occupations, but they are generally high skilled and a particular kind of work. So these are writers, these are tradespeople, these are freelancers, traders, investors, lawyers, salespeople, graphic designer, insurance agents, and even, you know, if you're an artist who is looking to sell your artwork, that would be you would be considered as someone who is a self-employed person. So let me jump into the pros and the cons. Isaac, would you mind doing the cons and I'll do the pros? So the pros of being a self-employed or independent contractor are that self-employed workers can reduce business-related expenses. So if you are somebody who is working for a company, think about it. You might have to pay for your attire. You might have to pay for equipment that you have to use when you're on the job. They might charge you for physical fees or anything else along those lines. You can cut all of that out as being self-employed, because a lot of the times, well, not necessarily a lot of the times, but there are people who are self-employed who work remotely. So you can cut out any transportation fees that you might have having the headache of traveling back and forth to work. Self-employed workers can also create their own schedules, which is probably one of the best parts about being self-employed. And you can choose your client base. One of the things that I said from the first workshop about choosing your own client base is that if you end up working with a client that, you know, you don't see eye to eye, you keep bumping heads, as a self-employed person and as a single member LLC, you can elect the decision to fire your client. So that's just something that I want you to keep in mind. And then plus, as somebody who is self-employed, you have the freedom to choose your workspace. If you want to work in the Himalayas on the side of a mountain, you can go there. If you want to work from the beach and you have connection to Wi-Fi, you can work there. Nobody can tell you where you can work and the time that you can start working from. The cons of being a self-employed worker is that a self-employed worker or a self-employed employee must pay a portion of Social Security taxes. So if you were working as a single member LLC, your business will absorb all those fees. So you don't have to worry about paying for those. But since you're a self-employed or independent contractor, that's a hit that your check, that either they'll give you a check that'll automatically take those fees out, or you'll get charged those fees later on during tax season. And then you reduce your income because every available deduction will reduce your taxes. So it will reduce the size of your Social Security benefit too when you decide that you want to retire. So unfortunately, one of the biggest things about being self-employed is that you really have to make sure that you have an organized set of clients that you're working for, because you want to be able to make profit off of your lifespan of being a self-employed person. And you don't get retirement like everybody else would, working for a big corporation. So just keep in mind that the amount of your Social Security benefit payment is calculated based on your 35 highest earning years. And the Social Security tax cap rate for 2022, which is the most recent one that I could find, was $147,000. And for 2023 was $160,000. And then how much you owe in Social Security taxes is based on your net income when you are self-employed. And I'm going to pass this one to you, Isaac.
No problem. And before we go on to there, I wanted to just, two things came to mind that I think I should note for you all. When it comes to starting your business, the rules vary across states. So Crystal is in New Jersey, running her business. So there are state requirements out there for an LLC and for businesses. Those may be different from the ones for New York where I'm at. So keeping that in mind, everything is not the same in every state. Government rules are the same in every state, but state rules are not the same in every state. To that point, I know that there are some instances where some sole proprietorships seek to use an EIN because you can get an EIN for free. That still does not provide you with liability protection. So you're still not protected. All of what we said still, if someone sues you, you can use your EIN number or your Social Security number. Because you're only a sole proprietorship or a self-employed person, is still always going, you always will be liable. It still will fall back to your Social Security number. So that's something to keep in mind. So you can't get out of that. You can't get around that, lack of liability, until you actually move up to a LLC, which is a more protected a business structure, or a 501c3 where we're at now.
I had one more thing before you jump into the nonprofit.
Yep.
Okay, so this goes back to the snapshot from workshop 1, which is about us covering the type of language that we're using for our businesses. So I realized that we keep throwing around the word EIN, but we don't go into details of what the EIN is. So the EIN is basically, if you are a sole proprietorship or a single member LLC, that this is your employer identification number that you will put on all your tax information as a single member LLC or a nonprofit or a sole proprietorship. And this is a number that is automatically given to you from the Internal Revenue Service once you open up your business. So in case you were a little confused about what that word meant, there you go.
Thank you so much, Krista. You're right, to talk about language. So we're talking we're using business terminology as business owners, and we're not being inclusive. So with that, some language, EIN, it would be the replacement of a Social Security number on a tax form. So who should we be attributing these taxes to and these costs to? So with 501c3s, so I've been working in the nonprofit area for almost 10 years now, from just working at Columbia University, working here at Another Choice Youth and Family Outreach, working through the Confined Arts, and just working with a lot of other nonprofits. So I've worked with them from being inside the company and having an entrepreneurship, where I'm running a program inside of a larger organization, and then also having to work with other organizations that may contract me or want the Confined Arts to come and do something. So a lot of interactions with nonprofits. So please ask questions in this regard. Nonprofits, seem to be very popular with people, but they do have their advantages and disadvantages. And we definitely want to highlight that, because I think one of the biggest reasons I wanted to do this workshop and all of these workshops is because a lot of folks are coming home from prison and want to start nonprofit organizations. And by doing so, they are leaving themselves more in a position of, we need to ask and beg for money, or at least that's what they believe. They have to ask and beg for money, and they can only get money through grants, whereas they may not need to set up their business in that way, where they can set it up, as a for-profit and still have, subsidiaries that are charitable initiatives. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But a 501c3 nonprofit, Section 501c3 is a portion of the U.S. Internal Revenue Code and a specific tax category for nonprofit organizations. So these are organizations that say, we are not here to make a profit, we're just here to do good. So that's the difference, right? So meaning that all of the money we may make or we get, it goes right back into doing good. It doesn't go into making us more, we don't incur, what is it? We don't have a, we don't, excuse me, I'm blanking on language, but pretty much we're not stacking our bank account with money that we're making doing this work. So we're not getting grant money and stacking our account so that we got all this money. We're not selling t-shirts so we just have a bunch of money, but we're actually taking that money and putting it back into the work we're doing. So our books and our records, our financial records for the year will reflect that all of our money is going right back into doing the work. And that is what a nonprofit is supposed to do. Those who qualify for 501c3 status can take tax deductible donations. They are considered they are considered charitable organizations, and some charitable organizations that we know are churches, private foundations. Sometimes schools are nonprofits. Although they don't seem like it, some schools are nonprofits. And it depends on how they're set up and what their mission is and how they're using the revenue that they are bringing in. Some of the pros and cons of having a 501c3, some of the advantages is that you are tax exempt, so you don't have to pay organizations that qualify as public charities under 501c3 in Revenue Code are eligible for federal exemption from payment of corporate income tax. Once exempt from this tax, the nonprofit will usually be exempt from similar state and local taxes as well. So if an organization has 501c3 tax exempt status, an individual's company's charitable contributions to this entity are tax deductible, meaning if Crystal Letters is a nonprofit and Isaac's Quarterly donates money to it, then that money is tax deductible for me. So I can go, when I pay my taxes, I say, hey, I gave $500 to Crystal Letters nonprofit, and I won't have to, that is something I can deduct on my taxes. So this is something to keep in mind when you, as a business, this is why it's good to give and donate, right? People think that, hey, they real generous for donating, but you get your money back when you donate. You get it back in taxes. There's a lot of time people write off things. So you can make a large donation to something and have it tax deductible if it's going to an organization, a nonprofit organization. So this is something to keep in mind. Another advantage is the eligibility for public or private grants. Like I said, grants are usually given to nonprofit organizations, organizations that have a nonprofit mission, a nonprofit setup. So that is the main thing that qualifies you for public and private grants. Another advantage is that you do have a formal structure. Similar to an LLC, you have a formal structure. As an independent contractor and a sole proprietorship, you do not have a formal structure. This is something to keep in mind. A nonprofit's organization exists as a legal entity in its own right and separately from its founders. Incorporation puts the nonprofit's mission and structure above the personal interests of the individuals associated with it. So keeping that in mind, nonprofits are very much socially driven. These are not, you don't set up no nonprofit if you're just trying to go and make money. If you're trying to just go and make money, set up a business and go and make the money. Don't do it this way because it'll work against you. And that's not what a 501c3 business is meant for. You have limited liability. This is another pro. Under the law, creditors and courts limited to the assets of nonprofit organization, under the law, I'll say that a little slower, creditors and courts are limited to the assets of the nonprofit organization. So they can only get a certain amount if sued or if you owe anything. This is something to keep in mind. The founders, directors, members, and employees are not personally liable for the nonprofit's debts. Okay, this is something also to keep in mind. However, there are exceptions. A person cannot use the corporation as to shield illegal or irresponsible acts on their part. So keeping that in mind, just because you are protected under the nonprofit, it can't be used arbitrarily. So this is where business fraud and other things come into play. Some of the cons, the not good things about having a nonprofit, especially starting out. If you're an individual, you just come home, or you're like a social entrepreneur, and you're like, hey, I want to do this good thing on earth. Let me start this nonprofit. Here's some things you should consider. The cost. Creating a nonprofit organization takes time, effort, and money. Fees are required to apply for incorporation and tax exemption. The use of an attorney, accountant, or other consultant may be necessary depending on the nonprofit you're trying to set up. Paperwork. This is a big reason why I did not make the Confined Arts its own nonprofit. And I left it as a program where we could have a fiscal sponsorship because I wanted to avoid the paperwork. I did not have the time to be in the field and still doing the paperwork. As an exempt corporation, a nonprofit must keep detailed records and submit annual filings to the state and IRS stated deadlines in order to keep an active and exempt status. Now, that does not mean that I'm not flooded with paperwork from a business. So I don't think that you're going to get away from paperwork. You still have to file stuff. You'll see that later. There's still a lot of tracking, a lot of paperwork you will have, but nonprofit, the paperwork that comes with the nonprofit organization is a bit different. It's not the same. There's much more of a governmental oversight on your business because they are exempting you from tax status, paying taxes. So keep that in mind, that there's a lot more government oversight. There's also shared control, something to keep in mind. Although the people who create nonprofits like to shape and control their creations, personal control is limited. A nonprofit organization is subject to laws and regulations, including its own articles of incorporation and bylaws. So you are subject to those things. In some states, a nonprofit is required to have several directors. In New York, you are required to have several directors. I know this, who in turn are the only people allowed to elect or appoint the officers who determine policy. Keep this in mind. You can start a nonprofit, have a board of directors, and because you have to have bylaws, your board of directors can remove you as the president of that organization and remove you from the organization. So the control is shared with the nonprofit organization. So keep some of these things in mind as you're thinking through your nonprofit and you're setting up what business structure you want to get started on. With that, I believe that we can go to the next slide. So I won't go completely through this snapshot because we'll share it and we said a lot of it. Let me do a time check. Okay. So in a few minutes, we'll take a break. I'll just very briefly just go through this slide and then we'll take our break before we go into the business management section. As a business structure overview, some things to consider are limited liability. As we stated, we didn't go over S Corps and C Corps in this workshop, so don't worry about it for this. It's not as relevant to a lot of the traditional setups for the audience that we have for these workshops, if you will. Most of the people who signing up for these workshops will go on to create sole proprietorships, LLCs, and nonprofits. And as they dive deeper, they'll decide on the different sorts of corporations or how they want to establish. But limited liability. LLCs, members are protected. Sole proprietorships, members are not protected. Nonprofits, members are protected. Management flexibility. Some entities are more rigid than others when it comes to structure. With an LLC, you have a variety of management structures you can take on. And with a sole proprietorship, you have no management structure. With a nonprofit, you have strict management laws because you have a board of directors. So keeping those things in mind. With your LLC, you could do whatever you want to do. You're not really as limited. This is why personally, I encourage people to seek out LLCs because you can, a lot would be protected under your LLC, and you have the capacity to write off a lot of what you probably do on a daily basis on your taxes, your business taxes, because they would be supporting your business and it would go to your business. So I do think that LLCs are better. That's just my personal thing, but you have a lot more flexibility in management. Favorable for financing, so gains credibility. LLCs gain credibility when applying for loans and grants. So this is some things to keep in mind. A nonprofit gains credibility when applying for loans and grants. A sole proprietorship, often more difficult to get loans and cannot issue stock. So there's like, you're not really set up. So people are like, hey, we're just really invested in you when it's a sole proprietorship. So it's not as much of a buy-in for organizations sometimes when it comes to like financing or banks. They rather, because to give you a loan as a sole proprietorship really is to just give you a personal loan. It's not that you may say it's for business purposes, but the liability falls back on you personally. So it's really like they're giving you a personal loan. So it's not as favorable to banks or loaners. Maintenance. LLC is easy to maintain and often affordable. A 501c3 typically is the most demanding due to the tax exempt status, and the sole proprietorship. It says excuse me, misreading. There are it says that in some places there are no requirements or fees for sole proprietorships, but I know in New York City you do need to have a certificate to be an official sole proprietorship. I do know that in New York City. So again, it varies in states. So it's important that you just like check out your state. Sorry. Yeah. So just keeping that in mind, it varies on the state. And with that, you know, sole proprietorships are good to start off with and then work your way out, you know, an unlimited lifetime. With the proper planning, LLCs can exist for generations. With a nonprofit, existence is not tied to a specific director. So keeping that in mind, it will, I went to, I took part in a grant program recently, and one of the things they taught us was that the goal of the nonprofit is to put itself out of business. And the reason they say that is because the goal of the nonprofit is to solve a social issue. So at the point in which that issue is solved, the business is dissolved because it doesn't need to do anything else because it has solved that problem. So keep that in mind, that your nonprofit is very much driven by the mission, the bylaws, the directors who have all come together under this cause. So it's not as much about you and what you want to do. So if you are a controlling person or you just want to have a lot of creative control, a nonprofit may not be the best thing for you, right? Sole proprietorship no longer exists when the owner quits or passes away. So that is our business overview snapshot, business structure snapshot, just to give you some insight on the different types of businesses you can start, some of the pros and some of the cons. Crystal, before we take a break, would you like to give any commentary?
No, honestly, I feel like the chart pretty much gives as much as we said from the past slides. So I don't have anything for this one, but I do have some for the next one.
Great, perfect. So what we'll do is we'll give folks We'll come back at 11:10, and then we'll start the second half of this workshop. Please take this time to stretch your legs, to get a drink of water, to think about any questions you may have had. I hope everyone's out there taking notes. If we said anything too fast or you didn't understand something, yes, we will share all of these slides if that's a question. Yes, so we will be back in 5 minutes. We'll see you at 11:10.
Yep, and if anybody has any questions, please feel free to just drop them in the chat and we'll answer them when we come back.
Crystal, can we get some of that good background music you were putting on before?
You got it. Hold on one sec.
we're gonna make our way back in another 60 seconds. All right, Crystal, I think we can get back started. Okay. So welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started on the second part of this workshop, which is business management. I will pass it back to Crystal, who will get us started in the revenue section.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you, Isaac. So we're jumping right into business management, and the first thing we're going to start off with is revenue. So what is passive income? Passive income is a type of unearned income that is acquired automatically with minimal labor to earn or maintain. It is often combined with another source of income, such as regular employment or a side job, and passive income is an acquired income, and it's also taxable. So say, for example, you have a small business, a single member LLC, you have an independent contractorship, a nonprofit, any of the businesses that we spoke of above, you can make passive income. So this means any merchandise that you might have during a festival where you set up a table or a tent, you can sell t-shirts, you can sell any of your products online. If you do have an online website now or in the future, that will be considered passive income, because if you have a product that you can post on your website that people can just go and buy on their own without needing to have minimal, without having maximum conversation with you, that is considered passive income. So if you have your own t-shirt with your brand logo on it, that they could just go ahead and say, hey, I want to get one of these, or you have a tote bag, or you have mugs or pens or any other type of merchandise like this that they can purchase on their own. You can add it to your taxes later on, but you don't really have to stress too much about how it's being sold, because you already pretty much know how the items are going to be sold when you create things like this. So when it comes to revenue, there are 3 different types of revenue that are really important that you should take note of. One is going to be called recurring revenue. And this is revenue from old and new users that you may have met along the line. Then you have non-recurring revenue. So if you have a product that you are providing to new clients, this is revenue that is coming from, you could have a client that comes to you just once in the entirety of your business being open, and that will be considered non-recurring revenue. But then you might have a client that will come to you, they'll buy a product from you, and then they'll refer you to other people that they know. So when you are building up your clientele, just keep in mind that one person could also equal 10 new doors for you. And the next amount of income, the next type of income is extra revenue. So that comes from the passive revenue that we just talked about, which is merchandise or income, merchandise and donations. So if you decide you want to open up a nonprofit in the future and you just have a donation button that goes straight on your website or inside your newsletter, this is a way that somebody can donate straight to your business without you having to be, without there having to be a middleman on how you're going to make these funds. And then we have income and expense tracking. Sorry.
Yes, no problem. Thank you, Crystal. So now transitioning right from revenue, it's not just about making the money. You're also going to have to keep records of all of the money that you're making. Could we? Yes, we can stay right on that slide. It's going to be highly important that you think about, what method you will use to keep track of the money you are making. You do need to account for every dollar that you spend on your business and every dollar that you make, because that deduction will be what the IRS takes to determine what is taxable income from your business. So the more you are able to show them, hey, here's how much I've been spending and here's how much I made, then they can determine, okay, this is how much you actually have that we can tax. Because in a lot of ways, and this is what people don't know, the government is set up a lot, I believe, better for business owners. If you have a business, if you own a business, in a lot of ways, sometimes, depending on, I would say maybe it's at an income level of your business. In some ways, it kind of does work in your favor in that you are keeping a good track of, your income versus your expenses. And then that taxable income is not as much as you thought it would be, right? So maybe you did get a big job for, $10,000, and you're like, man, I didn't pay my taxes on that. Yeah, what are they going to do? They're going to take all of this, but you spent about $8,000 that year to do the business, right? So you only have $2,000 that's actually tax deductible, or taxable money. So those things keep in mind. Hold on, yes, please. Thank you. Okay, so keeping that in mind, those dollars are the only dollars that you have taxable, that the government can tax you on. They can't tax you on money that you had to spend, and they can't tax you large amounts just because you made large amounts. If you spent a lot, then it really is a deduction thing. So keep your numbers correct, keep them clear. The two softwares that I recommend that people use or you can use together or you can use independently is Intuit QuickBooks. QuickBooks is very efficient, and it's really much set up for businesses. I think it's a very complex piece of software. I don't use QuickBooks. I've used it. I'm more of a Google Sheets person, which is why I have that up there. But with QuickBooks, you can take pictures of your receipt, upload your receipts, categorize your receipts, add every expense, every invoice, contract. You can pay people. You can do so much through QuickBooks, and it'll really be helping you to manage your money and your numbers at the end. So QuickBooks is not easy to use, so we'll take some training in it. You will have to maybe watch a few videos to get started, and then also ultimately talk to, go to a workshop on QuickBooks, and they provide those sort of workshops. You just have to go online to their website and find tutorials, and they'll show you how to use it. But QuickBooks is a very setup for that. Now, if you're like me and you like to do things manually, then you can use Google Sheets. And I use Google Sheets to create tracking sheets, to create receipt logs, and I create my sheets with calculations. So I categorize my expenses based on, if there's supplies, if it's transportation, if it's general operating fees. I separate those in my sheet, and they all calculate for me. And then I do the math. I have calculations set up, but this is because I'm familiar with Google Sheets. But if you are familiar with Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel, this is the this may work for you with respects to just keeping track of the numbers. You don't need to do much more than to know how much you spend and how much you're making. That's all. You can have those two columns if you want it to keep it that simple. Here's every time I made a purchase, this is the amount. You keep a log of that. And then every time I made money, this is how much I made. And at the end, you add that up and you'll have how much you made versus how much you spent. Your accounts receivable versus accounts payable. That's what that is. So just keeping those in mind. These are the two. I didn't want to complicate people with a bunch of different softwares you could try. I think the simplest ones, use QuickBooks if you wanted a lot to be done for you. But if you're familiar with Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, and you're able to create a simple spreadsheet, go for it. I also want to just say that one of the workshops that we provide under our grant is a computer basics workshop where we are actually teaching Google Sheets. So if you want to get a quick demo on that before August 19th, I believe is the last workshop date, please contact me, let me know, and I can give you a quick demo on how you could do expense tracking and income with Google Sheets. So that's something to keep in mind. With that, we can go on to contracts and agreements.
Okay.
Any questions? Yeah.
I did have a couple things
Oh,
for
please.
the
I'm
income
sorry.
and expense tracking.
I'm
So
sorry.
a couple, no, need to apologize. A couple things that I wanted to say. Um, so when it comes to your expenses as whether you're a small business, single member LLC, sole proprietor, or even a independent contractor, I was very fortunate a couple years ago to have the experience of working with a very terrible tax person, and then later transitioning to working with a very good tax person. So if you take the time as your business progresses, and whether it's Google Sheets or QuickBooks, and you start to use these products interchangeably with your business, you will make, okay, you will both be your tax person's best friend, or if you decide you want to do taxes yourself at some point, you will be your own best friend, because when it comes to your expenses, you can deduct transportation, you can deduct travel fees. So if you're taking a plane somewhere, you have to stay in a hotel, you can deduct those as an expense. You can deduct anytime, like if you need to buy a new pair, like say for example, you work in the theater industry and they're requiring you to purchase all black outfit with a pair of loafers or something like that. That's something that you can write off as an expense at the end of the year for your taxes. What else could you do? You can also you can expense your food. So any meals that you're having up to $45 as a independent contractor or a single member LLC, sole proprietorship, you can deduct that from your taxes. In terms of transportation, if you're taking the train every day, that $275 adds up. If you're taking the bus every day, that over here in Jersey City, it's $160 for us. That $160 adds up all across the board, and you can deduct those expenses for the entire year. So if you use the bus 365 days out of the year, you use the train 365 days out of the year, you can take that right off your taxes as a deduction. And then you can also, again, with your, I think it's up to $1,000. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that, but that is something that you can take off for travel expenses. And if you're, for example, taking a course to learn a certificate or to earn yourself a license, if the course is on, Google Courses or Udemy or Coursera, and you have to pay like $150 for that course, you can consider that as professional development, and you can also use that as an expense that you can just take off on your taxes. So anything that you're using to benefit yourself as a business owner, or even just as an entrepreneur, just keep in mind that these are things that you can take off. Or, if you have to buy some new equipment for, like if you have to buy a new computer, you have to buy office supplies, you need pens, you need paper clips, staples, anything like that, keep the receipt and use that later on to just use it as an expense for your taxes. So we're going to jump into contracts and agreements, which is going to be your literal lifeline as a business owner and entrepreneur. Some of the contracts that we're going to talk to you about is a NDA, a confidentiality agreement, non-compete clauses, fiscal sponsorship agreement, and service agreement. So NDA.
Would you like me to do a little bit of this?
Yeah, you can go for it.
Cool. And also to the last slide, I'll say to the last point on the expense tracking, check the when you go to do your deductions, you will have some limits in certain things, but a lot of stuff you probably won't be limited in. So you can write, like, so for an example, if your event is a catering event or a catering business and you buy tons and tons of food all year, that's an expense, as Crystal was saying, because you're spending it for the business. So anything you have to spend for your business to be productive or enhance your services is tax deductible, as long as you can explain it and justify it. To the point of contracts and agreements, we thought that this was important to add because a lot of times we go into business with just oral contracts, and sometimes we get burnt on those. And sometimes it's important to have written contracts, but not just that. What are the different types of contracts should we have? So you have your NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement. These can be used specifically for when you may be pitching around an idea or a product or something that you don't want people to share the ingredients about, the information about. So for an example, if I wanted to get some people to proofread, if I wanted to get some folks to proofread a bill, that I'm seeking to drop soon or put out soon with the legislator. I might have an NDA, so no one shares any of the information in that bill. Also, I may have created a film or an artistic creative project, and I want people to give me their feedback, but I don't want them to steal the idea or give the idea to someone else. So I create a non-disclosure agreement where all they can do is give me the feedback, but can't share any of the information for a certain amount of time. And if they do, then they're legally responsible for any damages. So for an example, if they leak your information or film, or someone else does it, or your content or your recipe or whatever it is, and you have proof that they have done so and they have signed a non-disclosure agreement, then they are legally liable and can pay you, and you can take them to court, and you have a case in court that you will win because they signed this non-disclosure agreement. Confidentiality agreements are exactly what they state to be, confidentiality. Sometimes working on projects, there needs to be a level of secrecy. And sometimes that confidentiality is also, well, actually a lot of the non-disclosure agreement will make up confidentiality, because that's the crux of the non-disclosure agreement, that things remain confidential. So keeping that in mind, but there are contracts that are specifically about confidentiality. Can't tell this, you can't say that, you can't do this, right? Non-compete clauses. This was a clause that I think Crystal added, and I was like, I think you did, or I'm not sure. You did,
I did
right?
this one.
I was like, I like that one. Yeah, go tell them about that.
All
one.
right.
Yeah.
So non-compete clauses. This is very important if you are a single member LLC. I believe it falls into the same thing with sole proprietorship, but only if you're hiring an independent contractor. So there were instances in my growth as a business entrepreneur where people would hire me as an independent contractor and have me fill out a non-compete, which ultimately meant that I could work, well, I had to exclusively only work with their company. So if I was booked to do a project from January to October or something, I could only work with them, because the project they were working on is so exclusive that they don't want me to work with another company. And then there's, I might want to take ideas from one company and bring it to the other. So having the non-compete in place means that when you're hiring an independent contractor, that they are not allowed to go beyond your company and your company's project to go work with another company who might be doing the same project. So it's just to cut out the competition for them as a business owner, and it excludes you as an independent contractor from being able to work with anybody else during the course of this project. And once the project is over, because normally they'll put like a date on it, once the project is over, then you can go work with whoever you want. But just keep in mind, whatever contracts you are filling out, whether you're independent, whether you're a single member LLC, sole proprietor, nonprofit, make sure you read everything. Read the fine print, read from top to bottom, because there are companies who will try to get over on you because they figure, oh, you're just going to see the contract, you're just going to put your name on it because you want to work on the project. Don't do that. The more information that they're giving you, that means that they spent a lot of time either with a lawyer, they spent a lot of time with somebody who knows exactly how to structure all of these agreements, and they want to make sure that you're paying attention. So as long as you're paying attention to what is being given to you in terms of the contracts and agreements, that'll better structure you in the future for your own business when you decide you want to hire or work with somebody else. So for example, with Crystal Letters and Open Road Poetry, any project that we start, we have our clients, they could reach out to us through our website, and they automatically fill out a service agreement. They fill out a service contract for us. So that way we know exactly what they need done. So if it's a person that they just need the public relations work done and they just need social media marketing, they're very specific in those asks. And there's no confusion to us as the people that they're hiring to do the work for them, because there have been times where we've worked for a company and they weren't clear about what they wanted. So later on throughout the project, they're like, oh, well, I thought that you could do this and I thought that you could do that. And it's like, yes, we can do those things, but that's not what you requested. And as long as you have the service agreement or you have any kind of contract in place, they can't go against you. Like, it's really your word against theirs. And since they signed off on the contract, they can't fight you on it because, again, this goes back to the beginning of the workshop. You're not a staff member for them. You are just a person that they're hiring to do outside work for them. And then once the project is complete, then you move on and do your own thing. And Isaac, you could take over with the fiscal sponsorship, and then I'll cover service agreement.
Yep. Thank you for that overview. I don't know. I mean, personally, you got to pay me a whole lot of money to sign a non-compete clause because it traps you from doing so much other work. So just some things to keep in mind, guys, when you everything that glitters is not gold, think about it. If maybe someone is willing to pay you a lot of money to sign a non-compete clause to work with them for 6 months, but is that going to be worth what you would have made if you were working with everybody for 6 months? Because you're literally blocking up your time for one employer. So it's like you're working for them for 6 months. They're the only people paying you. So keep these things in mind as you think about it. Fiscal sponsorship agreements. Again, these are one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to do this workshop, was because it's important that folks understand that you don't necessarily need to have a 501c3 yourself in order to receive grant funding or to receive donations which are tax deductible. If you have a fiscal sponsorship agreement with an organization, there are organizations that provide this service for artists. I'm going to put a name of a business in the chat. It's called Fractured Atlas. Fractured Atlas provides fiscal sponsorship at a very affordable rate to individuals who are sole proprietors, who are independent contractors. They even provide fiscal sponsorships to LLCs. So, example, we have an LLC, Isaac's Quarterly. Our business is for profit, but the Confined Arts is not a for-profit initiative. That is meant to be solely nonprofit, where all of the proceeds and anything we make doing that work is to go right back into the work. So it needs to be set up as a nonprofit, also because we seek to receive donations and grants for the work of the Confined Arts. So what we have done is we have gone into an agreement, a fiscal sponsorship agreement with an organization that has 501c3 status. So an organization that has 501c3 status can offer fiscal sponsorship to individuals, to programs, to projects. They can do that. The grant would be given to the organization, and the organization would then give the money to the initiative for you to use the money to do the work that you said you are going to do. So again, this is not a way for you to be a for-profit business and or to be an individual and just to soak up grant money because you are fiscal sponsorship. No, you are still held responsible to execute the work you said that you were going to do for the money that they have given you to do. So it only provides you with the opportunity to become tax exempt for certain work that you are doing. So keep that in mind. You don't have to set up a whole 501c3 for your business if you only want to do a few things under a nonprofit umbrella. So that is something to keep in mind. You can have more than one fiscal sponsor. We have Fractured Atlas. We also have our home site, which is another choice youth and family outreach, which is this is our permanent site. We use Fractured Atlas more for donations, so that another choice doesn't have to deal with the paperwork because there are a number of programs under another choice. So if a donation comes to another choice, it would either have to be filtered to a certain program or project, right? And that may take a lot. That may take a lot of staff work and a lot of logistics. So in order to alleviate that, we have set the program up to have its own fiscal sponsorship, which we use for donations, and we get the grants with them. The grants go to another choice, and they provide us with oversight. They provide us with insight. These things are important that you receive when you have a grant: oversight and insight, because people think, oh, I got the money, I could do what I want. You cannot. And you will be held liable for that if you don't do what you said that you were supposed to do. So with that, it may even be better to start with a fiscal sponsorship so that you get that oversight and insight from businesses. A service agreement, Crystal went through that a bit, so I won't recap that. Any final notes before we go?
Yeah, I did. For me, sometimes it's a little better to show people. So I wanted to switch gears just for a second. Um, so here's an example of something that we do at Crystal Letters and with Open Road Poetry. We have all of our new clients fill out a quote. So that way we have a gist of what it is that they're going to need to work on. And then that way, you know, you're able to specify the contents of the project, and it lets the client have a little bit more, how you say, it gives them a little more flexibility. So say, for example, if they're working on a project with you and they can only pay you like 500, or they can only pay you like $1,000 for the project. This creates your scope of work for you. So this counts as a contract that you would give off to your client if you are an independent contractor or if you are a single member LLC. And then in addition to that, we created a service contract agreement, which is another form that we have all of our clients fill out, because that way it locks them in. So you don't, if you end up creating a service agreement for yourself, one thing, and this is one of the programs that that we use a lot, this is called Podio. It helps you organize everything from your business from top to bottom. And these agreements are often, they're automatic. So people can just go straight onto your website, you send them the link, they fill it out, and it makes it easier for you to structure everything on your business page. And the benefit of using Podio, if you don't know how to use it, take some time to, you know, learn how to use it, because Podio will end up with any agreement that you make, you can export it as an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can use it later on for tax information, or you can use it later on when you're trying to make templates for, you know, working on different projects. So we can go on to the next one.
And I dropped a link for Podio in the chat, everyone, and I'll also drop a link for Fractured Atlas in the chat.
Thank you.
As well. Yep. Okay, so we are moving along to your annual report. I'll get us started here, and then I'll let you take it, Crystal. Your annual report, what we mean here, so when we say annual report here, we are not talking about the traditional progress reports or annual reports that you should do as a business. I think that every business should have a report so that you know what you did all year, how many sales you made. That way you can make improvements each year. So you should be able to show, especially if you're a nonprofit, you should definitely be doing annual reports so that people can look at your annual reports to see what you have been doing for the past year, how much you've been spending, what you've been spending it on to some extent, so they can get a sense of what work you're doing. That's not the type of annual reports, we're talking about here. These are more annual reports, state requirements for your businesses. So these are like for LLCs and specifically for nonprofits. You don't have to register with the state every year for sole proprietorship or as an independent contractor. So you won't need to do an annual report. But again, I think that having a business related work progress report is beneficial for any business entrepreneur, because you want to be able to see what you did in 2022 versus what you're doing in 2023. And when you go into 2024, you want to be able to look at what you did in the last workshop. So with that, I'll pass it to Crystal.
Okay. So like Isaac was saying earlier, the difference between our businesses, his is based in New York City and mine is based in New Jersey. So the annual report differs based on your state. So since I'm a single member LLC, every year I have to file my own annual report, and I'm sure that the Confined Arts and Isaac's Quarterly has to do the same every year, but for New York City. And you know, here's one thing that a little bit of a trade secret. So if you are creating your business from scratch and you decide you want to use a website such as, and we'll give it to you in the resources later on, there's LegalZoom, there is Inkfile. They are going to try to sell you on everything. They're going to try to sell you to have somebody who does your annual reports. They're going to try to sell you on somebody who just, okay, when this is something that I learned the hard way. I was paying, I think maybe like $600 for when I first opened my business. And then every year after that, it was $299 just to have somebody fill out my annual report for me, take a scan and scan it upside down into my personal folder. And then later on down the line, I learned that I could do that myself just by going to the annual report website, which is on the New Jersey portal. So just keep in mind, no matter what city you're in, no matter what state you're in, as long as you're in the US and you're filing to open a business, you can do all the annual reporting yourself. You can do all the taxes yourself if need be. But once you learn how to do these things on your own, you don't have to outsource your business to have somebody like LegalZoom or have somebody like File Inc. do it for you. And it makes it more of an intimate process, because as a business owner, when you're starting out, most people don't know where to start. So there's already established companies that are like, okay, here, we can make it easy for you, 1, 2, 3. And you don't have to look, you don't even have to blink in their direction, and it's already done, which is great. But once you get to the point where you're making steady income, you're making steady revenue, that $299 or that $600 that you pay to have somebody just scan and upload something, you could easily hire it. You could hire an intern, or you can hire somebody else who can do that for you. They can be an extension of your business, and you don't even have to worry too much that, because this is something that you could charge $50 for. This is something you could charge $150 for. And it'll definitely save you some pennies. And just keep in mind that when you are opening any kind of business, check the .gov websites for your state, and then you'll get more information from them, because it's just a matter of reading and knowing the correct questions to ask when you're going into Google or whatever your search engine is, and you'll find the answers. Even on YouTube, a lot of the times they'll teach you how to do simple things such as this.
Thank you for that, Crystal. Yes. And in New York, I know that it's called the Banal Report, and it's every 2 years. No worries. So in New York, there's the Banal Statement, and it's to the point that Crystal was saying. It's only, LegalZoom charges me $70 every 2 years to just ask me, did anything change with my business structure? And that's what the report requires. The state wants to know if anything changed with your business, anything major with your operating agreement or your things like that. So if nothing has changed, then it's a simple file. It's a simple file anyway, but to Crystal's point, you don't need to have LegalZoom or another organization do it. But if you don't want to be dealing with those things, then you can do that, and sometimes I take advantage of those services. Sometimes I don't. Transitioning to that same point, taxes. To that point, you can, taxes for businesses are not as hard as folks think they are. They are a little bit more complex when you have a nonprofit. So in that case, I wouldn't encourage you to try to do your taxes on your own at all if you have a nonprofit. But specifically for a sole proprietorship in a single member LLC, you report that income as self-employment on your 1040 form. So the regular tax form that you create, when you go to file your taxes regularly, it's a 1040 form. On that form, there's Schedule C, which is for self-employment. There is where you would list any income you have from either a sole proprietorship or a single member LLC. And that is what you call pass-through taxes. So that is the easiest way. Now you can set up your taxes to be a different way if your LLC is set up differently, but if you are if you're a single member LLC, then you don't have to, even though you have that liability that a sole proprietorship does not have, you still would report your income in the same place on the 1040 form, Schedule C. If you use contractors, right? Let me just write that here. If you use contractors, now a contractor, as we said, is someone who is also a business owner who has come to who has a specific skill set. Maybe you hired them to be a speaker, maybe you hired them for any reason. You do need to fill out in January, before I believe the 30th, you do have to fill out a 1099 NEC, non-employee compensation form, and you have to, as a business, file that with the IRS, let them know, hey, I got these amount of people I'm about to let y'all know about. I paid them this amount of money. And also you send those forms to the contractors themselves so that they now receive that form and they are able to go and file their taxes and saying, hey, I made this money from this person. So your 1099 non-employee compensation form is a tax form you will need to become familiar with if you hire other people. If you pay a person more than $600 a year to do a job in New York, you will need to file and fill out this. I'm not sure if that number is different in other states, but I know $600 and up, you need to give people a 1099 form. If you are a 501c3 nonprofit, most likely you are filing a 990 form. And I wouldn't encourage people to take on that form on their own. If you do your taxes already on your own, your 1040, then you can do the Schedule C for your business, and it won't be too much difficult. It's just you adding in the totals from your numbers that you've been keeping all year. But again, if you're not comfortable, go to the tax person. But I'm going to tell everybody, go to the tax person if you have a nonprofit. Don't do that yourself. Go to an accountant just to make sure that you're reporting right and you're receiving the maximum amount of deductions. You even want to say that with the business period. You want to make sure that you're getting the most amount of deductions. So an expert would be good in any case, but you could do your taxes yourself as a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, just using your 1040 form, Schedule C. Independent contractors, again, I think this actually, I just capped that and I don't want to confuse people in the slides. I'm going to erase this because I just said that. If you use a contractor, independent contractor, you will need to give them a non-employee compensation form. You will have to file that. That is for any contractor, whether you are nonprofit and you contract somebody, if you are a local business and you contract somebody, you still have to fill out this form. So I just wanted to reorganize and reorder that so it makes more sense. Again, if you're a sole proprietor or single member LLC, you can pass through your taxes, which we will see on the next slide. 501c3, you file a different form. But in any case, if you use a contractor, you still have to do your 1099 and it's an NEC. So you'll see 1099 NEC. So there's something that, and you have to do it before a certain time or you will be penalized. These are the different aspects of having an LLC versus a sole proprietorship or having a nonprofit versus a sole proprietorship, that there are deadlines for you to file certain things with the state, tax-wise, things like that. You do need to make sure you're on those things, on top of those things. Do you want to add anything before I just give this snapshot of the taxes?
No, and I could give you a breather. I could cover the snapshot.
Okay, cool. That's cool. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so here's our business structure tax overview snapshot. Tax considerations for LLCs, S Corps, C Corps, nonprofits, and sole proprietorships. You can pass through taxes as a LLC and S Corp, and most often LLC members are pre-taxed on their personal tax returns. S Corp holders, shareholders are taxed on their personal tax returns. C Corps take a double taxation. They're taxed at the first corporate level and then taxed again at the personal level. Nonprofits apply for tax exempt status. So in the case of the confined arts, they don't have to worry about getting taxed because they are tax exempt. And this is another thing you can keep in mind too. If you are a nonprofit and you go to Home Depot, you go to Lowe's, you can actually request that you get charged a tax exempt status when you're going to these places, because this counts as a donation, which is great too, because it's like if you are getting, there's certain places that you can go to that if you're trying to get a product or you're trying to get some resources for your nonprofit business, you can check mark the tax exempt status, and that will take the taxes right off. And also with certain invoices, when you are sent an invoice from a business, whether you're in the state of New Jersey, state of New York, they automatically can remove the taxes from your invoice at the end of the project. For a sole proprietorship, Sole proprietors are taxed on their owner's tax return. So remember that as a sole proprietorship, you are personally being taxed. And that's for any project that you do. And for formation fees, LLCs all fees are tax deductible. So when you're opening up your LLC, if you are working with a tax person and they charge you $350 to do your taxes, you can also write that off for the following year because that counts as a fee. And the same thing goes for an S Corp corporation, all the way across the line for C Corp to nonprofit to sole proprietorship. Any fees that you incur as a business, you can literally just write them off at the end of the year with your taxes.
Yep. Thank you very much for that snapshot. And we are on good time too. So with that, we'll be closing up now. The last thing I wanted to leave everyone with is to continue to educate yourself on your business, your work, and your audience. Continue to educate yourself before you jump into the fire. Educate yourself, and as you are in the fire, continue to educate yourself. Continue to be innovative, continue to be strategic. Think about your business. Think about why people should come to you versus another business. What sets you apart? Why are you unique? Here's how we are different. Continue to educate yourself on your business, your work, and know your audience. The more you educate yourself on your audience, the more you will be able to appeal to them. So we are, as business owners or entrepreneurs, we are in, what do they call us? Lifetime students, because we want to continue to learn and advance in the industry. Because as people change, the culture change, products change, and people support businesses different. So with that, our next workshop is going to be on business marketing and advertising. It will take place on Friday, September 23rd from 11 to 1 p.m. It is, again, another virtual workshop. In this workshop, we will be covering business marketing and advertising. A lot of it will be around how do you gain visibility. So we'll also be talking about branding and more. How do you set yourself apart with the visuals you use, the trademarks, all of those sort of different things that will shine your uniqueness other than you having to say it. If we see the Pepsi sign, we know that's the Pepsi sign. If we see the big Target circle with the dot in the middle, we know that's Target. We don't need to see the name of it. We know it's a Target store. So in these ways, they have increased their visibility through their marketing and advertising. So that's what we'll be talking about on the next workshop. I'll turn it to you, Krista.
And I know, or at least I hope, that a lot of you have been waiting for this moment. This is our Q&A. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. This kind of goes back to our first workshop, but we'll tie it into this one as well. Reflect on those who already have a niche. So if you already have a niche, you know exactly what it is that you want to open your business up and do. You are probably like 95% on the right path to being your own entrepreneur, your own business owner. For some beginners, here's a second question for you. What are some niche ideas? So if you don't know where to start in terms of becoming a business owner, where do you want to start? What product do you want to make that is going to help benefit your audience, your community, your clientele in the future, or even now in this present moment? I'd want to think that we are very fortunate. We're in a very fortunate time where we have computers literally at our fingertips. We can look up whatever we want in a split second. We can go on YouTube, find any answer we want. So what are some niche ideas that you have? And then where do you see your business a year from now, 5 years from now? Because if you're a forward thinker in the way that we are, you'll see that your business is pretty much already at fruition towards the end of this workshop. And what do you need today to get started today? And I'm hoping that our workshop is what might help you jumpstart what you need to get done today. And I am going to see what we have in the chat. So I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong. I'm not sure if it's AI Summer Ambassadors or Al Summer Ambassadors, but we have no questions. Thank you from the Al Summer Ambassadors and from Margaret Dahman. I appreciate the clarity of the presentation. So we have no questions, but we're glad that you were all able to join us here today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. So we have some resources that we have on the next few slides, but we are going to send all of these resources to you, some reading resources for entrepreneurs, some just general resources for entrepreneurs, some resources for entrepreneurs looking to open business, marketing resources, project management for entrepreneurs. So we're just going to flood you with a lot of entrepreneurial resources in our follow-up. But again, the Confined Arts is a program that cultivates and showcases the talents of creative voices and artistic artists, directly impacted by incarceration. A lot of our, I had a specific demographic in mind when I thought about these workshops, and we made it open for everyone. But I definitely want to encourage people who are coming home from prison or coming or seeking, let me not say that, people who are seeking to create projects out of their own lived experiences, because that's what it is. It is people who have gone through stuff and are saying, hey, I see a need. I want to do something about it. Consider how you want to make your impact. Consider what's the best structure for you to not have a headache trying to run a nonprofit where you really should just be a sole proprietor doing a few things. So think about that. And for the young people that we work with who are listening here, think about the steps that it will take to get to where you want to go. Write out the steps, execute the steps one by one. Nothing happens. Nobody, even the people we see who made it, or, you know, all the rappers we listen to, the musicians, the entertainers, nobody got to where they've gotten to by just starting. Oh, I came outside, I started rapping, then they saw me, they signed me. Or they just see me dance the first time they saw me, they signed me. No, people took steps to promote what they were doing, to show what they were doing, to create their uniqueness, to put themselves out there and be vulnerable. So with that, I just wanted to encourage you all that this is not going to be an easy thing, but it will be self-satisfying. You will be your own boss. But that doesn't mean that you need to be bossy. You know, you will just be in a position of leadership to take on what you believe is important. So with that, I'll turn it back to Crystal, but please keep that in mind.
Yeah, so this is our last slide for today's event, and this is just noting that technical support was provided by Crystal Letters. Again, with Crystal Letters being a single member LLC, I was able to turn my poetry and creative writing, my work as an artist, as a writer, and convert that. When I started out in the very beginning, I wanted to find a way to give back to my community that had helped foster who I wanted to become in the future. And now as a single member LLC, I'm able to provide freelance editing, writing, and I do the works for different nonprofits and organizations from all around the world. So you really never know, and you could have the opportunity to work with so many different companies, so many different people. And especially with us being in the age of technology, you have everything at your fingertips, and being able to work as a remote worker, or even being hybrid, you can work anywhere, anytime, and there's nobody that can limit you from doing what you want to do. And if being a business owner and an entrepreneur is what you want to do, just shoot for the stars.
And I will echo that, and we will leave you with that. Shoot for the stars. Please reach out to us if you have any questions, concerns, or comments. Thank you very much for your kind words. Thank you for being on. Thank you for everyone who is on today and who will watch this workshop in the future. Thank you very, very much for participating. Everyone who did participate in this workshop is eligible for a certificate of completion, whether you have participated now live or on the recorded session. So we will email everyone about that. But that's it. Thank you all and have a great weekend.